Right, a good morning to all the PGCE students and welcome to our webinar. This is our second session of the webinar for today, and specifically with the idea to focus on the revised assessment requirements for the revised academic calendar running from the 4th of May to the 30th of June. With me, I've got Josh, who is our Learning Event Director, and I've also got Ms. Priya Kistan, our Senior Lecturer, who is going to kindly assist me with facilitating this session. Right, just for those of you that have joined into the second session is exactly the same as the first session. The session will be recorded and it will be placed on ECI for later viewing as well. Okay. Just for those of you that have never participated in a webinar or in a Zoom chat room, there are two features that you can use to participate in the discussion. You will find at the bottom of your screen, there's a chat feature. You can write your message and then send it to the presenter and or fellow students, and Ms. Kistan will assist with your response. Keeping in mind that often when you write a message to somebody, there are other students that could respond to you because they may have some information about what you're querying about. Right, but you can also raise your hand. Again, if you go into the chat feature, you will see that there is a little icon. There's a little icon that there's three little dots. It's called a burger menu. If you click on it, you will see there's a little icon that says that you can raise your hand. When you click on it, it means you would like to speak, and then you will be promoted to speak. Right, you can also use this device of raising your hand on your cell phone. So just tap on the little icon that says raise your hand, and then you may speak, and Josh will kindly take the questions and we will give a response. Right. Any questions that you have that is not answered during the session can be emailed to myself and to DL Teaching Prac at embury.ac.za. My email is Marinda, spelled M-A-R-I-N-D-A-S, at embury.ac.za. It's Marinda S at embury.ac.za. Kindly just CC as well DL TP Teaching Prac and the DL support email as well, so that they also get the query and we will respond to you. Okay, so what is the purpose of our webinar? It's specifically to explain the minimum requirements for teaching practice in schools, so that you understand what are the national and the institutional policies in the context of COVID-19. And then, you know, because of the closure of schools, we had to identify 4 categories of students in order to make sense of where each of the 423 students in the module is, and in order to be able to make sense of the assignments and the time in schools going forward. You would have noted in the news forum or the announcement forum I sent last week that I've identified 3 categories. There is an additional 4th category that emerged over the past few days. The 4th category are students that managed to complete 4 to 5 weeks, and they've managed to complete all the requirements for the module. Then I also would like to make sure that to clarify the revised assessment requirements for TP701, but with more specific focus on assignment 6, the portfolio of evidence, which now has part 1 and part 2. And then to allow engagement with you so that we are able to take take some questions, and I'm able to respond to some of the questions. And again, if we are not able to cover all the questions in this webinar, please kindly email us with as much detail as possible, and we will kindly assist you with a way forward. All right, just some background so that you understand where the time in schools come from and where we are standing now with the outbreak of COVID-19. Now, our accredited Stadio PGCE program includes 10 weeks of teaching practice. If you look at the table below, it has been divided for full-time first year, full-time over 1 year. In semester 1, there are 5 weeks. For the first 2 weeks, the purpose was observation in school, and then the other 3 weeks teaching in the school, and then in semester 2, another 5 weeks. And the goal is that you should teach in both your subjects that you are registered for, or if you're registered for 3, to teach in all 3. If you're a part-time student over 2 years, the program has been designed that in year 1, you should do your TP701 in semester 1, and then in year 2, semester 1, your TP702, which is another 5 weeks. And you should be teaching one subject in each year. So you should be teaching the subject that you are registered for. However, please just take note of this. All students, whether you are full-time or part-time, when you are in the school for TP702, a Stadio assessor will assess you at least twice in your subjects, and therefore part-time students should in year 2 be able to teach in both of their subjects. Right, so with the COVID outbreak, we are at the moment standing in a situation where some students have completed 5 weeks of TP, so the full requirement, with students not having completed any teaching practice because students were registered in March and schools closed soon after that. So the we have a national policy called, in short, Mr. Tech. Now, Mr. Tech requires a minimum of 8 weeks and a maximum of 12 weeks in a PGCE program. So when we designed our PGCE program within Stadio School of Education, we decided to go midway for 10 weeks, so 5 weeks in each module. And that was approved by the Department of Higher Education and the Council for Higher Education. So with the revisions, because of the outbreak of the virus, our academic board, in short ACBO, decided that where students can possibly do the 10 weeks, that is our first goal, but the minimum teaching practice for the year in or within the PGCE program, whether it's 1 year or 2 years, must be 8 weeks. Okay, so from all the information we received from students and taking in consideration the requirements of national and institutional policies, we have come up with the following 4 categories of students. The first 3 categories were approved by ACBO, our academic board, and as I said, category 4 only emerged in the last few days. So I'm going to go through these categories so that you can understand in which category you fall, because that will determine the teaching practice in schools, but also the assessment requirements for this module. It may happen that you fall between 2 categories. And I will give you an example just now. If you are a student that falls between 2 categories, you don't fall in category 1, you don't fall in category 2, then please, you need to contact us so that we can guide you with a way forward. Category 1 students are students that completed 10 days or more, so 2 weeks or more in the school. And that is equivalent to 2 weeks of teaching practice. So the other 2 weeks, that to make up 4 weeks in a school for TP701, will then be the alternative strategies for teaching practice, which is part 2 of the portfolio of evidence. So remember, as I said in my communication to you, the alternative strategies for TP has been designed in the place of the time lost in schools, and because you've lost out on quite a lot of school-based activities. And we attempted to feed some of those activities into the alternative strategies for TP. But of course, you can never actually replace all the learning that takes place in a school. The alternative strategies for TP has been approved by the Department of Higher Education and Training. and they have recommended that all higher education institutions go this route, but the alternative strategies for TP may not be more than 2 weeks of the teaching practice in schools. And therefore, you will see this is how we've designed it. So category 1 students, if you've done 10 days or more in a school and you've completed the alternative strategies equivalent to 2 weeks, then it means you have a total of 4 weeks for teaching practice 701. Then you will do your 5 weeks of teaching practice in TP702 in the second semester if you're a full-time student, or next year if you are a part-time student. Then look at category 2. Category 2 are students that completed less than 10 days. Some students are only started with their observation maybe 3 or 4 days, and suddenly the school's closed. So category 2 students must do the alternative strategies for TP in part 2. Maybe I should just mention at this point in time, remember, all students must do part 1 of the portfolio. However, category 1, 2, and 3 must also do part 2 of the portfolio. This slide focuses specifically on the time that you've lost in schools. Right, so if we go back to category 2, you've completed less than 10 days, you do the alternative strategies equivalent to 2 weeks. So you will have more or less 3 weeks of TP, give or take. Then you do 5 weeks of TP in the second semester or in TP702, and you would have done a minimum of 8 weeks. Category 3, if you've got, but some students have done no teaching practice in school whatsoever, and they have to do the alternative strategies for TP is equivalent to 2 weeks. So category 3 students will only have 2 weeks of TP for TP701. And such students will then have to complete 6 weeks of TP in TP702. Now, this may be problematic for some students that are working in the private sector. And therefore, you will see on the slide, we have a special cases category. Students that are not able to complete an extended period of time of teaching practice in TP702 need to contact us with the details, and that will have to go to our academic board for consideration. Then we have a category 4 students that have completed 4 weeks. They've taught 4 formal lessons, and the mentor has assessed the 4 formal lessons, and they've taught 6 for informal lessons, and there's a final school report signed and stamped by the school. Now, please keep in mind, all students that have final assessment reports from the school or mentor assessment forms, for the document to be legal, it must be signed and stamped by the school. Now, schools are closed. How will you get the stamp? So what you will do is you will submit to us. If you have the documents with you, email us the documents if they are not stamped, and then once the school's open, you will then ask the school to provide the stamp and then give us the original. The school will then provide us with the original document. Right, so category 4 will have 4 to 5 weeks that they've completed for TP701, and then TP702, they will complete 5 weeks. Okay. When it comes to students possibly falling between categories, I'm going to give you 2 examples. Let's say in category 2, a student may have only started with 1 day of teaching practice, and then the school closed. Theoretically, that cannot be regarded then as a week of TP. That student may then say, no, I fall more in the category 1, the category 3 component. So you need to carefully look at where you are, but across the PGCE program, there must be a minimum of 8 weeks of teaching practice, of which 2 would then be the alternative strategies, but up to 10 weeks of teaching practice. Right, the other scenario that we have is, let's look at the categories now in relation to the assessments. And I'm going to go through each of the categories again. So it's very important for me that each student understand what is required in order to complete the TP701. So category 1 students, you've completed more than 10 days. Category 1 students should have been able to do assignments 1 and 2 based on your observation experiences. We're talking about the original assignments 1 and 2. Those assignments were designed with the purpose of looking at activities within the school context. You do assignment 3, lesson planning, assignment 4, class tasks, the continuous involvement trackers up till the end of the semester. Assignment 5, some students may have assessments from the mentor teacher. If there are 2 assessments from the mentor teacher and the assessment forms are verified and stamped and signed, the marks allocated by the mentor teacher will stand for assignment 5, but we have to have at least 2 mentor assessments. If there are no mentor assessments, this is for students that have not been able to teach formal lessons which the mentor assessed, then we will take one of the lessons submitted in the portfolio, part 2 of the portfolio, and we will assess the lesson plan and the live recording of the lesson, and then that will be used for the lecturer assessment. And I will speak to you in a moment about the live presentations. Assignment 6, the POE, there are parts 1 and 2. And then assignment 7 for all students would be a completion of a free online course, a very short online course on OER. OER stands for Open Educational Resources. In the assessment guide, we have provided you with a link to a short course, a free short course on digital pedagogies, but there are many other sites that offer free online courses. Assignment 7, you can select any subject field such as education, teaching and learning, or your own subject field. If, for example, you want to learn more about specific maths topics, there are quite a lot of free online courses on subject-specific topics. You will then complete an activity log for assignment 7, which will then be marked by the assessor, and the mark will be, Right, so let's go to category 2. Some category 2 students, let's say a student may have spent 8 days in the school doing observation. They could have done the original assignment 1 and 2, because based on their observations, they felt confident that they could do assignment 1 and 2. But a student may have been in a school for 2 days and they say, no, you know what, I don't have enough information for the original assignment 1 and 2, so I'm going to do the revised assignments 1 and 2. So we have made provision for students to do the original assignment 1 and 2, or the revised assignments 1 or 2. Then under category 2, you will see under assignment 5, we will select one of the lesson plans and live presentations for assignment 5. Category 3, students that have not had an opportunity to go into schools at all, and they're also not involved in any online teaching. So students in category 3 must do the revised assignments 1 and 2 on ECI, and then as in the case with category 2, for assignment 5, one of the lessons in the portfolio of evidence with a live presentation, a recorded live presentation, will be used for assignment 5. Category 4 students would have been able to do the original observation assignments, and they will have 4 lesson assessments by a mentor teacher that will stand for assignment 5. Category 4 students also only have to do part 1 of the portfolio and a very small another small item of part 2, which I will explain in a moment. It is peer feedback, peer critique and feedback on a lesson introduction. Okay. Where students may also fall between categories, and I have mentioned this, but I'll just reiterate it. Let's say, for example, you're a category 1 student. You spent 15 days in a school. You don't qualify to be a category 4 student because you haven't spent 4 weeks in a school and you haven't got 4 formal assessments by the mentor. So you fall in category 1, but it may happen that you've spent 15 days and you have 2 assessments by your mentor. Then those 2 assessments will stand for assignment 5. Okay. Right. Let's look at the details of the portfolio of evidence. For categories 1, 2, and 3 that are you're required to do part 1 and part 2, and they are integrated into the portfolio of evidence. If you looked at the rubric for the revised portfolio of evidence, you will notice the mark allocation is 230 marks, and the weighting is 35% for the portfolio. So part 1, I have indicated there in orange color and part 2 in a blue color. So the folders for each part of the portfolio it's similar to the original portfolio, but now there's certain items that have been added because of the revisions. So under the first folder is administration. There is still an administration folder, but of course, if you've not been in a school at all, you can't submit the timetable of the mentor teacher. You cannot submit the daily planners. If you were in a school, you could submit that. So please, when you do the administration part, please indicate there clearly that you managed to do 10 days, you're a category 1 student, category 2 student, then we know how to assess you in relation to which category you are in. The teaching philosophy, there's a folder for your teaching philosophy. We will be doing in 2 weeks' time how to design a teaching philosophy, because as a student teacher, it's very important that you have a teaching philosophy and you will take this teaching philosophy through to TP702 and then as going forward as a practicing teacher. Folder 3 will be 5 lesson plans with resources. Now, I say that you are going to have 5 lesson plans on single topics. Now, single topics meaning that you have selected topics in any of your 2 or 3 subjects in any grade, senior phase and FET, for any school term. It could have been a first school term. It may be that you taught some lessons in the first school term, and that can then stand as part of, it can go into folder 3 under the 5 lesson plans. For part 2 of the portfolio, you'll see folder 4 will be 5 lesson plans, which now forms part of the alternative strategies for TP. You're going to design a unit of lessons. So a unit of lessons means there are 5 different lessons on a specific theme or focus area. And it must be for term 2, because remember, you have lost time in schools in term 2. You would have been out for teaching practice in term 2, and therefore the 5 lessons must be on a theme or a focus area for term 2. You will be required to do 5 lesson plans, and you select 3 of the lesson plans to do recorded live presentations, and I will give you some details about that in a moment, because I know a lot of PGCE students have emailed me and saying, how is this going to work, because we're not in a school situation, we don't have learners, and therefore I hope that I will make you feel more comfortable about the way forward. So back to folder 4 of part 2 of the portfolio, you will see that one of your lesson plans with live presentation will be selected, and it will be sent to a peer, and the peer will critique the introduction phase. So each of you will get a link to the lesson plan and a live presentation, but you only peer critique the introduction phase of the lesson, and then you complete a feedback form. So what will happen is the assessor will look at how you have completed the feedback form in relation to watching the video of, or the live recording of the introduction and the lesson plan. So your peer critique and feedback form really needs to be quite detailed in terms of does the introduction meet the criteria, etc. So you have to think very, very carefully of which lesson plan would you like to submit for this task as part of the alternative strategies for teaching practice. Then there's folder 5, the reflection report, and it has been revised to accommodate students that have not been in schools, and so it allows you to reflect on the alternative strategies for teaching practice, etc. And then there's a folder for general. Your folder for general is specifically if you have attended specific meetings in the school, let's say a curriculum meeting, or any evidence to show that, you know, I've attended something in the school and I've really learned quite a lot from it. Don't fill the general folder with a lot of stuff. It has to have meaning for you as well as for the assessor. Okay, category 4 students. Your POE, I'm going to upload your revised content of each of the folders and a revised assessment rubric onto ECI by Monday latest. But the folders are very similar to the original portfolio of evidence. There's administration and teaching philosophy, your 4 formal lessons and resources assessed by the mentor, 6 informal lessons and resources, your reflection report on your experiences in the school, because you're not doing the part 2, and then there's general. But as I said before, I would like you to do part 2, where you are going to peer critique another person's introduction of a lesson, but one of your lessons can either be one of your formal or informal lessons that has a live recording, and that introduction will then be shared with a peer for critiquing. Okay, so now the big question that is on everybody's mind is, how do I do this recorded live presentation? Now, I'm not talking about if you have been doing online teaching in a school. Let's say some of you have been doing online teaching, because in a way, what I am doing now is a live presentation, and it is regarded as teaching, except I'm not interacting too much with my class, because a lot of teaching that's been going on through Zoom, the learners can actually ask questions and the teacher can respond to it. So if you've been involved in online teaching and you have a recording where you've actually taught the lesson, you have learners engaging in activities, whether it's single activities, pair activities, you've asked questions, they've responded. So it's almost like a full-on lesson, it's an online lesson that will also then stand as a recorded live presentation. Right, so some of you may have thought, well, why and where does the issue of recording one of your lessons come from? So internationally, it is a trend to ask teachers, whether they are student teachers or novices or experienced teachers, to actually present and record a mini lesson. So it's a short lesson, 15 minutes to 30 minutes, or part of a lesson, which we refer to as micro-teaching. And that recording of the lesson is then given to a peer or assessor for feedback or assessment, but it can also be used for employment purposes. One of our colleagues in the teaching practice department applied for work overseas, and they asked her to provide them with a recording of her live presentation of a mini lesson, so that they can look at her mannerism, her communication skills, the resources that she's made, how she integrates the resources into the teaching. There are no learners in her classroom, and it's not a real classroom, it was her dining room at home. And based on that live presentation, the recorded live presentation was part of the interview process. So live presentations that are recorded is part of international trends, and it's part of teacher education and teaching profession. So mini lessons can be done face-to-face, and we are now not in that scenario. We do face-to-face mini lessons with our contact learning students, but we are at the moment, we are looking at the recording of live presentations of mini lessons. So a mini lesson, and we're talking about a mini lesson, you still have an introduction, a development, a conclusion. It takes the form of simulation. So it's sort of a role play in which you carry out the process of teaching, but it is artificial. And mini lessons normally focus on communication skills, subject knowledge, how you teach a concept, how you go through processes, how you teach a skill, and the flow of the lesson. If you look at how you're going to plan for your live presentations, because remember, you can't just plan your lessons and then go and plan the live presentations. They have to be done together, because not every lesson you plan, you will be able to do a live recorded presentation. So it's going to take a lot of thinking and a lot of planning of how you're going to do this. If it happens that you have a lesson that you may have taught in the school, and you want to use that in your portfolio, and you want to do a live recorded presentation, make sure that it is suitable for a live recorded presentation. And I will give you an example as we go along. All right, so when you plan part 2 of the portfolio, the alternative strategies for teaching practice, you are going to design your lessons, your 5 lessons, as a unit of lessons. So a unit of lesson refers to lessons that are continuous. So there's an introductory lesson and then 4 other lessons. And it's on a specific theme or focus area. So you can select any one of your subjects that you are registered for, any of the grades, a theme or focus area for term 2. Right. I will upload an example of my unit plan onto ECI, because in preparing for this part 2 of the portfolio, I actually designed a unit plan with an example so you can see how it should be done. So the second thing that you do is to select your context within which you are working. Some of you are in a traditional school. When I say traditional school, you know what I mean, your private and public schools. So there's a classroom with a teacher and learners. Some of you have been teaching maybe your siblings or family members in a homeschool environment. That is also regarded as schooling context. Some of you have been teaching online, or you have been involved in a virtual school. Now, interesting enough, when I was looking for references around virtual schools, I came to realize that in South Africa, there are 10 virtual schools, and they are different from a homeschool. And going forward, if you ever want to look for employment, that a virtual school is also a possibility where you can look for employment. All right. The next thing that you do is you select the teaching learning model. So you select whether you want to do online teaching learning, whether you want to do blended teaching learning, because remember, if you are homeschooling, you could possibly do blended learning. Blended learning is a bit of face-to-face, traditional learning, but also then online learning. And then you may say, you know what, I'm not homeschooling, I'm not involved in a virtual school or online school, I will stick to the traditional school. So then you can select face-to-face teaching that is learner-centered. And there are specific requirements in the assessment guide for that. So once you've decided on your subject, the context, and the model that you're going to use, then design the unit of lessons using the unit planning template that is on ECI, and then look at my example as well. And then at the same time, plan how you're going to do a live presentation in relation to your lesson plan for 3 of the lessons. Okay. Right, so when you present a mini lesson, remember, you can use any space. We're talking about a traditional classroom. You can use any space in your home environment. It can be outside, but just make sure that the wall at the back is presentable. And remember, you have imaginary learners in your class. And I'm going to give you an example. Good morning, 9A. How are you this morning? Oh, I see everybody's very happy this morning. You obviously had a very nice weekend. Right, just to show you that you're talking to your learners, you are getting a response and you are responding on it. It's an imaginary response. I'll give you another example. If you want to ask a question, you may say, all right, how do volcanoes erupt? Well done, John. That is really a fantastic answer with some wonderful insights. I'm going to pass your response on to Sally and see if Sally can add to that. Sally, well done. But there is one little problem in your answer. Let me see if I can help you correct it. Right, so can you see what I'm saying? So you are asking your questions to your imaginary learners, and you are getting responses from them, imaginary responses, and you are responding to it. By doing this, we can, as assessors, we can look at how you framed your question, how you respond to a question. So it will be nice for you in your live presentation also to have learners that give you most probably a very silly answer, and how do you respond to that? So you will see in the next unit we do next week, we are looking at the questioning sequence, and part of the questioning sequence is prompting, probing, and responding to learners' answers. And it will be great if you tap into those guidelines in your live presentations. So when we assess your live presentation, we will focus on your communication skills, your subject knowledge, the flow of the lesson, and also specifically whether your live presentation also links up with your lesson plan. But remember, we will assess the lesson plan in relation to the live presentation. How are you going to do your live presentation? You will have to ask somebody to record you on a phone, and that can then be uploaded into a YouTube account, and you will then give us the link to the YouTube account at the bottom of your lesson plan. Upload your document in Word format so that we can click on the link and it will take us directly to the YouTube account. We will place on ECI how to create your YouTube account. It's a very easy process if you haven't done it before. I can with confidence say that any of you, if you read the how-to guide, you will be able to do it. Okay, so just to make sure that you're following what I'm saying with the live presentations, 5 of your lesson plans for part 2 will be supported with 3 live recorded presentations. The first live recording with lesson plan will be assessed for assignment 5 for categories 1, 2, and 3 students if you need it. The second live presentation with the lesson plan will be assessed for part 2 of the portfolio. You'll see in the assessment rubric, there's 50 marks for the lesson plan and 50 marks for the live recording of the lesson presentation. And then the third live presentation will be sent to a peer for critiquing and feedback. And you will get the comments and the marks back, which you can add to your portfolio of evidence. Then my last point is you are going to submit your portfolio as an electronic portfolio. Remember, a lot of you have started with a hard copy portfolio, which was a requirement because mentors need to look at your portfolio. And also, when you're going to TP702, you're required to keep a hard copy portfolio because the Stadio assessor will look at your portfolio when they visit you for your assessment. However, because of the COVID-19 changes, for the first semester for TP701, you will submit your work as an electronic portfolio. So what you're going to do is you'll see, I'm going to set up the e-portfolio that you will have a folder for administration, your teaching philosophy, your 5 lesson plans, your 5 unit lesson plans. It's exactly the same as it is in the assessment guide. And then you will upload all your material there. If you have any tasks that you've done in a handwritten format, you will scan that in. We're not expecting you to go and retype it. You can scan it in and you can upload it onto ECI. please just make sure that when you scan it in that we can read the document, because otherwise it does impact your assessment. All right, so yeah, I think from my side, that is basically what I wanted to cover with you in this webinar. I just want to say to you, remember, this is a different journey all of us are walking. It's a journey of uncertainty. We don't know really what to plan for at the moment. We can only plan for the next few days or next few weeks. We don't know what's going to happen in the future with the schools opening. But just to give you some comfort, for me, it's important that you focus on TP701 as outlined in the webinar and in the slides. Determine which category you are in. Make sure you understand which assessment requirements you need to do. If you fall between two categories, please contact us. If I can't handle the volume of emails, because I do get about 50 to 60 to 70 emails per day from PGCE students, I will ask my colleague, Ms. Kirsten, to assist me. And if you are not sure about how to engage or how to plan the second part of the portfolio of evidence, the alternative strategies for teaching practice, design your plan, write what you want to do, how you want to do it, and then send it to us so we can guide you with a way forward. Remember, we cannot guide you if you say, I don't know what to do in part 2 of the portfolio. Then we cannot guide you. What exactly is it that you don't understand and that you need guidance with? That will really make our lives a lot easier, not make our lives easier, but it will help us to support you with a way forward so that we all are happy with that you meet the requirements for the TP701 module. Okay. Josh, I'm over to you. I think we've got about 10 minutes for questions.
I'm going to direct Christine's question to you, as Priya has been doing an excellent job in answering the previous 18 questions.
Lovely. Thank you, Priya.
The question goes, as a part-time learner, will I only be completing TP702 in 2021, meaning my 6 weeks will only be done next year?
Yes. If you're a part-time student, you only do your teaching practice, your TP702 next year. We do have some students that are part-time. They will be doing both TP modules next year. Depends on how the part-time was structured for them.
Amy White wants to know that they were asked to do lesson plans in the other modules. Are they able to use those same modules to hand in to this module as a portfolio, or will they have to be complete brand new lesson plans?
No, it will have to be a new lesson, because otherwise it's referred to as double dipping. It means you're using the same lesson for 2 modules, and it's not allowed.
An anonymous question from a student, so then there will be 10 lesson plans in total?
That's correct.
Okay, that's correct. Okay, I think this is actually a question for me. The student asks, will the lesson, okay, no, it's not. The question is directed for you, Doctor. Will the lessons on YouTube be... Oh no, this is a question for me. This is actually a question for me. The students want to know, will the lessons on YouTube be live or on the net remain confidential and only accessed through the link sent? Yes, that is correct. Currently, what Delta does is that we stream our lectures and they are only accessed to the students, and they are only done privately. You will notice if you go to the YouTube channel, you will see the channel is listed there. However, you will not see any of the video content has been made available. They are only available to the Stadio students as a way of virtual learning.
Okay. Can I add to that, Josh?
Yes.
The students must feel comfortable to create their YouTube link and their YouTube account, because when you send that link or you upload it onto ECR, we are the only people that see that link. So it's confidential. It's not going to go on to the World Wide Web and everybody can view your presentation.
And another question, will the first 5 be formal and the other 5 informal? The student is just feeling a little bit uncertain.
Is it a category, if it's category 1 And now for category 1, 2, and 3, you'll see there's no distinction between formal and informal. It's 5 lessons on single topics and 5 lessons on a unit of lessons. For category 4, there are 4 formal lessons and 6 informal lessons, because those were the original requirements for the module.
Regarding the next question, Doc, regarding the money lesson, will we be writing up a unit lesson plan, which is 5 continuous lessons, or must we integrate all 5 of those lessons in our money lessons, or just pick one of the lessons from the unit?
No, the mini lessons for live recording of the presentation should be 3. So 3 of the 5 lessons must be selected for a recorded live presentation.
And then another question over here. Is there any way we can get an extension for all of the involvement trackers and assignment 3 till the end of the weekend? We have been bombarded this week with activities. I know we have had the last 5 weeks, but we were told that the trackers or due dates were going to be assessed this week, not due this week.
We have been given instruction for the involvement trackers that the involvement trackers should end by the end of the week, but I will extend it to Monday morning. I'll extend it to Monday morning. Let's make it about 8 o'clock. Can I just go back to that question again, Josh? Does that include the lesson plan, the assignment 3?
Is there any way we can get an extension on all the involvement trackers and assignment 3 till the end of the weekend?
All right, that's fine. I will extend assignment 3 till Monday morning, because I am aware that I know education studies also had to submit this week, but I have to first work through the institutional calendar. I have to request permission to make that change. I will let the PGCs know on the news forum if I'm able to extend it. I will send my request in after our webinar.
Nandeepa would like to know, with the 10 lesson plans, must 5 be from the FET phase and 5 SP phase lessons?
Yes, if you are registered for 2 specializations, 2 subject specializations, you should have a balance of 5 and 5.
Okay, now we just have a lot of thanks, and that is all the questions answered.
All right, thank you. PGCE students, thank you very much for attending. I really appreciate it. I wish I could have seen all the wonderful faces in front of me. But as I said throughout the presentation, if you have any queries or you're not sure about the way forward, please write a detailed email, and either Priya or myself will get back to you as soon as we possibly can. And remember, we're walking this journey with you, and it's our goal to make sure that you are academically successful for the TP701 and the TP702. Thank you.
Dr. Swart, we still have Q&As.
Okay, right.
Oh, there's a one student really confused. 5 lessons from each subject specialization. They want to know, is it 5 lessons from every specialization that they have?
Yes, if you're in category 1, 2, or 3 student, remember, and if you're a full-time student, you have 2 subjects. The majority of people have 2 subjects. Then it means you have to have 5 lessons in the senior phase subject and 5 lessons in your FET subject. If you are a part-time student and you only have 1 subject, then it means 10 of the lessons will be in your 1 subject. But then I advise you to spread the 10 lessons over grade. Let's say you are registered for senior phase subject, then you spread the 10 lessons over grade 7, 8, and 9. As far as possible, you need to accommodate the subjects that you are registered for in the PGCE.
So if the students have 3 specializations, they ask for advice, how many lesson plans would each be prescribed? For example, if they have social sciences, geography, and history.
Okay, then if the 10 lessons, they can have, let's say, 3 in geography, 3 in history, and maybe 4 in social science. So across the 3 subjects, it must come to 10, but they can decide which subject will have one extra lesson. So normally it will be 3, 3, 3 with one other subject having 4. That makes sense.
And then will the videos be focused on both FET and SV?
The live presentations.
Yes, Doc.
No. Remember, if you select your alternative strategies part 2 on your senior phase subject, so you design 5 lessons on a theme in your senior phase subject, then the live presentations will only be on the senior phase subject.
I see that we have 2 students that actually have their hands raised. Would it be okay if I promote them to panelists?
Just a minute. Apologies.
Would you like me to promote?
Yes, please do.
I promoted the one student to a panelist, and then the other student also asking questions. I will be promoting to panelist as well.
Thank you. Can I just stop sharing?
Of course, Doc.
My apologies. Devo, please just put your video on if you can.
The 2 students who have joined us as a panelist, please switch over. There we go.
Oh,
Hi,
yes,
good
ma'am.
afternoon or good morning, Devo. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. How are you?
I'm fantastic, thank you.
Thank you. I wanted to ask, in the worst case scenario whereby school don't open for the whole of this year, what's going to happen, like in terms of teaching practicals? So we're only going to be doing the micro lessons and then whatnot.
Are you talking about if the... So the sound's a bit bad. Are you talking about if the schools don't open in the second semester, in the in the third school term? I've indicated in my previous session as well, it's very difficult to predict what's going to happen with the schools.
Yes.
If the schools don't open for the second semester, where you're supposed to do TP702, we are going to have to get direction from the Department of Higher Education and Training, because they send communications to us about what needs to happen in teaching practice. So they will have to then guide us and give us directions what will happen. So as soon as we get that communication, we will let the PGCE students know. It's very early for us to make any predictions now. But what I do know is that the department is trying also to encourage all institutions to ensure that the PGCE does not run over to must probably end by February next year, and not longer than February.
Oh, okay. Okay. And
but as soon as we get any information, I normally try and share that. I normally share that with the group.
Okay. One last thing. Given that you said the lesson plan that was supposed to be due today, you're gonna extend it to Monday morning. Is it possible that one can change from SP to do FET lesson plan?
May I ask why?
Maybe due to the availability of resources, you might have having to have textbooks for FET and not much of senior phase. So you think
that makes sense. Yes, that makes sense. Okay, thank you for raising that point. I did not take that into consideration with the COVID-19 changes. Yes, if it means that you have FET books available, material available that can support you in designing the lesson, then I will overlook that. Then it's fine if you submit a FET subject.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. That will be all from me.
Okay. Right, Rakesh, you noted that you've got problems with your signal. You need clarity on assignment 6, part 1. Rakesh, are you busy typing? Okay, you need clarity on assignment 6. lesson plans across SP and FET and lesson units, 3 videos. Yes, Rakesh, if you are category 1, 2, or 3 student, then for part 1, the 5 lesson plans can be senior phase and FET, so both subjects. But part 2, the 5 lessons on the units must be either the senior phase subject or the FET subject. You have to choose one subject for term 2. And then of the 5 lesson plans, there must be 3 recorded live presentations to support the lesson plan. And it's not FET and SP, it's one. It's either FET or SP. Does that answer your question, Rakesh? Okay.
Dr. Swart, we have, our time limit has been finished.
Okay. Can I just ask? Okay, I see
yes,
another 2 questions.
Yes, Doc, it's fine, go for it.
Okay, I see there's another 2 questions coming up. Eleanor is asking, do we need 5 FET and 5 SP? Yes, Eleanor was asking if the, for the part 2, the unit of lessons, if they come from one phase, so let's say, for example, they come from SP phase, the senior phase, then it means the part 1, the single lessons, that will be folder 3, that will be there on the FET subject. Eleanor, you are correct.